Welcome to The Pause, the Hush Hour podcast, in which I, Alicia Davis, sound healer and meditation guide, chat to people that I find inspirational and fascinating, and I hope you will too. David Ditchfield would be the first to tell you that before his awe-inspiring and life-changing near-death experience, his life was on the rocks and going downhill fast. Success eluded him at every turn. He was in a dark place when a horrific accident saw him pulled under a speeding train towards what looked like certain death. But instead, he went into a full Technicolor near-death experience, or NDE. Returning to consciousness afterwards, despite his pain, he was profoundly and permanently changed. This is his remarkable story. Hi, David.
Hi there.
Hello.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, actually. Thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, fine. Thanks. Yeah, it's a beautiful day again, isn't it?
Fabulous. I know.
Yeah.
I know. We're lucky. It's a shame we can't be doing this outside, really.
True, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. What an amazing opportunity to get to chat to you. I've been watching your videos and listening to your music and reading your book and
Thank you.
seeing you being interviewed by all sorts of people. And it's just amazing how your life has changed
Oh, thanks.
dramatically. I mean, it's safe to say that you weren't in a brilliant place before your incident.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
was down on my luck, as they say. You know, everything was just spiraling. Yeah, right up until the point of the accident itself. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, when you before the accident, you were doing odd jobs, you were doing
Mm.
construction work and anything you could find because, I mean, the main reason for that was because you suffered from dyslexia. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was never diagnosed with that when I was at school. They just wrote me off as being, lazy and inattentive, which is not true. I really wanted to learn, and be
Yeah.
part of the
Oh, yeah.
system. But so yeah, so it makes me realize that it can be so damaging, when we're children, that we're absorbing all this knowledge of the world, and then to have
Yeah.
the sort of so-called adults who are in control of our lives is just it can be very damning. It can
Yes,
it
and
can shape you up, basically.
totally can, because you get labeled as a child, and that label stays with you forever because you don't
It
have the
does.
means to undo it.
Yeah, that's
So
it. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
like you, because I mean, I was labeled, well, I wasn't labeled dumb, but I wasn't good at maths. But I was really good at art. I was a creative, so
Yeah.
it
Well,
was
that's it.
fine in primary school, but then you go to secondary school and they start streaming you because you're not good at maths.
Yeah, well, this is it, and you realise as time goes on, it's just that we're all wired differently. That's the way I describe it, and
Totally.
and that's it. I've got friends who are brilliant scientists or brilliant at English and whatever, and that's fine. And we learn that we just kind of, it's there's certain traits I've got that they haven't, and so yeah.
When you think of it like that, it's really amazing because we all learn from each other, don't we?
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
As educators you might be, you may not understand something really fundamental that someone who's spiritually connected might be able to explain to you, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Spirituality is great because it really helps us. It really helps us, first of all, to ground, which is really important. And once we start grounding ourselves, then we can start being authentic to ourselves and starting
Yes.
to realize our hidden gifts, and who we really are. Yeah.
Yeah, and you weren't being authentic to yourself before. I think it's
Not at all. No, that's totally fair to say. Yeah, I was like a lot of people. I was acting my way through life, because I felt that I wasn't up to the mark, that I thought I got to sort of, act as if I was this other person. I was aspiring to be like other people around me. And there
mm,
was nothing wrong with those people, but I wasn't them and I never was
yeah,
going to be them, and so,
yeah,
but I didn't realize that. And I was drinking heavily, that was my way of sort of switching off from all my anxieties, which I figured. But of course, we all know that the more you drink, the more anxious you become. So it was a vicious circle. So yeah, but I'd moved to London, and I figured that moving to London would answer a lot of things for me. I thought, well, there everyone's going to be going in with the same idea, and that is making something of their lives. But obviously, it wasn't that easy for me because when I got there, I was surrounded by people who were successful, very successful, and so the benchmark was getting higher for me. But yeah,
That's a weird one, that one, isn't it? Because some people say you should surround yourself by successful people in order to kind of absorb some of their not their DNA, but excuse me,
yeah,
their
their energy, yeah,
their energy, their way of
yeah,
thinking, their way of doing stuff.
yeah.
It can be, if you're a sensitive person, I think it can be really discouraging as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's good to surround yourself with people who are not negative. I guess I suppose that's true. And a lot of people who are successful are positive, but there's different levels of positivity, and and not all those levels are very constructive, and they certainly weren't for me anyway. Because yeah, it's a different sort of level. Yeah, I mean, I was a lot of people I knew were working in the entertainment industry. They were working in the music business and stuff like that. And so it was all very sort of darling, and it was all very up and sort of like a lot of it was front. So
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
that wasn't a good one for me to try
They
and
weren't really being
link into.
authentic either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So in some ways, you were seeking something through having inappropriate relationships with people as well, I gather. So
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was the same thing. I just figured that trying, I was trying to get into various relationships that I thought were going to fix me, which is very common. You realize that throughout life that a lot of people, a lot of falling in love with somebody, a lot of people are looking for being fixed by that
yeah,
love affair or what have you. And the ones I was looking for were people who were successful, and attractive and all those kind of things. And I thought, well, if I'm in that relationship, then my life's going to become successful and attractive as well. But again, it was making me struggle because I thought I was spinning plates. I thought, how am I going to, keep this whole act alive and
yeah,
and, and going, especially because I got no money, and money is very important when you, well, for all of us, but living in a capital city, it's a very expensive way of life, and for me to keep up with that was very, very tough. And doing manual laboring as well, I wasn't very good at that kind of work. I was working in an environment, and I realized that those guys are really skilled at their jobs. They were brilliant at it, and I just couldn't do that. So I even felt out of place there,
yeah, yeah.
and so it was a very odd
So
place I got myself into. Yeah.
your self-esteem was at the rock bottom then at that
Yeah,
point.
it was. And it's not all poor me. I mean, a lot of people get into that situation in life. We realize that that's just the way that we try to get ourselves in, fitting into society, and trying to make ourselves I don't know, tick with the people that are around us. And so so my self-esteem is very low.
I mean, I can relate to a lot of what you say, actually, having been a very shy kind of um, uncommunicative kind of child. I retreated behind a wall of non-communication because it just felt safer there, you know. But I didn't find my courage until much. Well, I'm still finding it, actually. I mean, in fact, doing this kind of thing is me continuing to find my courage, because I hate being in front of the camera. So here I am putting myself in front of the camera. So this is part of my thing. But so I really appreciated your story, because I could understand where you were coming from. Although, you know, I'm not dyslexic and I haven't had to deal with the same issues that you've had to deal with, but some of it is really similar.
Yes.
I felt it. I really felt it.
Yes. That's
What made
brilliant.
me really emotional.
Oh,
Seriously. And I'm just going to show the book for anyone watching. I suppose it's going to come out back to front in the video, but
that's good.
we can put a link
That looks great. Yeah,
at the
thanks.
end. Yeah, it's a really fantastic read. I read it practically in one day. It was just amazing story. So
Thank you.
in that story, the turning point is just about to approach. So what happened leading up to this amazing life-changing experience?
Well, I'd got to the point where I was about to lose my home, my apartment. You know, I was running out of money, and I went to stay with my sister and her family in Cambridgeshire for a few weeks, just to try and get myself grounded. And while I was there, I was kept in touch with somebody I just met in London, who I connected with, called Anna, who I really liked her a lot. You know, she was great. So she came up and stayed for a few days, and you know, we hung out and had a really good time. And she had to get back to London, so I was seeing her off at the rail station, and as I helped her, you know, onto the train with her bags and stuff like that, we had a last sort of kiss and hug goodbye, and the emergency buzzers went on the closing doors, and my coat got trapped. In a freak sort of manner, you know, they just I just couldn't pull it free, and it was just like, oh, this is not good, you know. And it was just I remember looking through the window, I could see Anna was looking through the other side, and just the look of sheer horror in her eyes just made me kind of figure, wow, this is it, you know. I'm going to die, because I didn't figure I knew I wasn't going to pull free, because I tugged as hard as I could, and I'd shouted for help. There was nobody at all on the platform. There was no guards or anything, you know. So the engine started to rev up on the train, and then it started to edge its way out the station. And in fact, it pulled out. I felt every gear shift, you know, and I lost my footing, and I was dragged along at great speed. They go really fast. You don't realize how fast a train actually pulls out of a station until you're attached to the outside of it, you know. We don't, because we get on, you know, when a train pulls out, we just sit down, and we just get out our phones, don't we, straight away, and check our texts and stuff,
Don't
you
even
know.
pay attention to it. No.
Yeah, so they really accelerate very fast, and I lost my footing, as I say, and I got dragged, and then I got pulled between the space of the platform edge and then the speeding train, and I went under the wheels, and it was like being pulled into like this dark pit, this dark sort of oily pit, you know. And it was just, it was like
hell, really.
It was hellish. Yeah, it was hellish. You know, I went into fight or flight mode, and I decided to go into fight mode. And I remember actually the train itself suddenly became like this huge mechanical beast, as I describe it. You know, it was no longer just a train, you know. And I remember seeing the carriage doors almost disappearing into the sky, it looked like, because that's how, you know, it was a deep drop. And then I was thrown around. It was like being thrown into a washing machine at full speed, and thrown around relentlessly. And I was conscious throughout the whole ordeal. And then I suddenly found myself thrown to the ground, and I was like in between the tracks as the train was still speeding on. It was a very long train. It seemed to go on forever. And I knew that it wasn't all over at that point. I thought any part of the undercarriage could just hit me over the back of the head, and that would be it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I remember I cast my mind back to like movies like sort of Indiana Jones and 007. What would James Bond do now? You know, he would put his head into the gravel. And it's true. That's what I did. That was my survival technique at that point. And then the train eventually did move on, and there I was, just kind of looking up into this beautiful blue sky. When I say that, it was just because of such an absolute moment of horror to have gone through that lasted 13 and a half seconds. I know that because the British Rail Police did their inquiries. It took a year to conclude, and I said, how long did it take? And that's what they said it did. And it felt like minutes to me. It felt like time had stretched, it didn't slow down, but it felt like everything had stretched out. And there I was looking up at this sky. And I felt so in touch with nature at that point. I felt so in touch with the earth because I was alive, and I couldn't believe I was alive. Yeah.
It's amazing that you had the facility to be able to not only to think the way you were thinking, but to remember it all, like in such
Yes.
detail. Because I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, I would have thought I would have passed out just from the sheer terror.
Yeah, well, obviously that does happen as well. I mean, that's, sometimes, we'll go into shock and pass out because that's almost like nature's way of anesthetizing us from what was going on. But as I say, I think because I went into fight mode, I remained conscious,
That's remarkable.
It's interesting as well because I watched a documentary a couple of years back, a US guy called Dr. David Eagleman, who talks about the brain. And he talked about what happens with people when they're in situations like myself. He was talking about this guy who was like a rock climber that was high up a mountain. He's one of these guys who doesn't have any straps, that they just climb. They're free climbers, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And he lost his footing, and he was like literally hanging off this edge. And he managed to pull himself up. But this guy said that when it happened, that it's almost like he got time to think it all through, and which is what I did. I remember just as the train was pulling out, as I looked into my friend's eyes, I remember a news footage item came into my mind that I'd seen a couple of weeks previous, where I remember a young child, it was about 3 or 5 years old, maybe, had been thrown from a burning apartment block from the third floor and survived without any injuries. And they said that is because children don't tense up like we do as adults. So the older you get, when you're a child, you just relax. So I thought, right, do that, relax. And I did. I just relaxed my whole body as I went through that space and underneath. So, which I'm sure had something to do with saving my life that day. But ultimately, there was something more powerful, something bigger than all of us that saved me that day. There was just something at play there, which I later found out. I was told by a medium who I'd come across, who I was just having coffee with one day, that said, that you were saved by your power animal that day. And I was going, okay, yeah, what's a power animal? And so she described it to me. She said, in situations like that, because it was so, incredibly huge, that you have a spiritual guide, and sometimes you have spiritual power animals, that will step in and save you. So yeah, I know, that's incredible. Yeah.
Are you allowed to say what kind of animal it is?
Yeah. Because I went for another reading afterwards because I was fascinated by all this.
Oh, me too.
And it was and interestingly enough, I walked into the room, and the person who was giving me this reading said, before we even start, I just want to tell you that first of all, you're surrounded by cats, domestic cats, so just running all around you. Yes, exactly. But then she said, but you also walked in with a lioness right by your side who was just there. And that lioness is just guarding you. And she said, and that is quite remarkable. So I thought, well, there you go. So, yeah, me too. I'm just getting it as well. So it's yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
God. So at that moment, your life had started to change completely, and you didn't know, you had no idea what was going to happen next. So what actually did happen? So you're lying there on the track, you're looking up. It's a beautiful day, and somehow, having been through all of that intensity, you're managing to connect to nature.
Yes.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
You must have been feeling a lot of pain.
Yeah, I was in tremendous amount of pain, and my left arm had been severed. So I remember seeing this coat that I've been wearing that was now ripped to shreds. Especially all down my left arm, and I could see the inside workings of my arm. And rather than going into sort of sheer horror and shock, I remember just being fascinated by what I could see. I thought, wow, that's me. That's the workings within me and stuff, and not being afraid. So I was still being protected because I didn't start to panic. The emergency guys arrived really quick, and they jumped down on the track, started cutting through my clothes and whatever, and then somehow got me off that track, which is a huge drop, as I say, and then got me to an ambulance. I remember the doctor saying, look, we've just come from a small hospital around the corner, but the one that's really going to save your life is a 25-minute drive. Can you do it? I said, yeah, let's go. So the siren went off and we screamed off like a rocket down the highway, and then there we were. I remember just arriving at the hospital. There was a whole team of medics waiting there for me, and they just got to work. And I knew that it wasn't all over still then, because I could hear fear in their voices, and I didn't understand what they were talking about. It was all science going over my head, and I knew that I was losing a lot of blood at this point. And my family arrived. They got there, and time all seemed really strange. I thought, how did they find out? And how come they're here? But they came in, and my mother was in tears, I remember. And I remember apologizing to my mum, I was going, because it was me that was bringing drama to the family. And I was going, Mom, I'm so sorry. It's me again, And of course, she put her hand over my mouth. She said, stop it. It's not your fault, which it wasn't, So, and it was pretty much at that point that I left all the trauma of the hospital, the pain that I was in, all the lights, the fluorescent strip and all that stuff, and I was suddenly in a completely different realm. I was in this lovely darkened space, like a lovely warm, comforting darkness, and I looked around to find out my bearings, and I thought, where am I? Because it had all happened so sudden, and I looked, and there were these colored orbs of light that were slowly pulsating all around me. They were just kind of almost like landing lights at an airport strip, and I figured straight away, this is it. I'm dead. I've moved on, and I haven't survived. And I didn't actually try and resist or fight it. I didn't, because I was in no state of fear. Quite the opposite. I was feeling really calm and relaxed, and I felt really happy to be there. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to lose my life. But obviously, as my life hadn't been that great. So I felt really complete all at once. And I remember sort of looking down to sort of check my body, check my wounds and see how everything looked, because I knew what kind of state it was in. And everything was fixed, because I was no longer clothed. I was just covered in like this blue sort of satin sheet and I just looked, and all my arm was back intact. There wasn't even a single scratch or bruise, which was like quite remarkable. And then I just saw there was like this kind of white reflecting off this sheet, and I thought, what's that? And I looked up, and there were 3 grids of white light, pure white light, that were just kind of coming down. And so I laid my head back and gazed into this light, and couldn't stop looking into it, because I felt comforted by this light. It was like a pure whiteness that was so bright that normally I would not be able to look into this light, but in this instance I could. In this realm I could. And then I felt the presence of somebody near me. I thought, there's somebody just entered the room or the space, So I lifted my head, and there was this person who was just stood there, this androgynous being who was just stood there wearing a very simple black t-shirt with this kind of pure white blonde hair, and this skin that was illuminating light from within. Wow. And I looked at this person, and I thought, I know you. Where do I know you from? I thought, your face is so familiar to me. And I felt like I'd known this person throughout the whole of my life and beyond, And but I felt safe. I felt like this person was guarding me, in this situation I was now in. So that was a real comfort. And this person just kept smiling back at me and not giving me any answers as to what was going on. But I didn't care. I laid my head back and waved in the, oops, excuse me. That'll go in a moment.
Don't worry.
That's our fire alarms go off every Friday at this time. I forgot.
And it's possible the postman might actually ring my doorbell while we're in the middle of this conversation. I had a notification, so
if that's like, we're all used to living in this kind of state now, where we're all you watch the news and you're seeing world leaders being interviewed on Zoom, and suddenly the classic ones where a child will walk into a room or something like that, and it's like, oh, excuse me, or a cat,
tail going past.
Yes, indeed. So, you know, I'm sure we're all used to it.
Yeah.
And um, anyhow, as I lay back, I'm gazing up into this light, and then I felt the presence of more people had arrived, if you like. And you know, you can do, you know, it's like if you were lying down on your sofa or something,
Yeah.
meditating, if somebody walked in the room, you'd feel their presence. So it was
Your
like that.
spidey
And
senses kind of go, don't they?
the what, sorry?
Spidey senses, they pick up some
Yes,
other energy as it comes into the space.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly it, you know. And so I opened my eyes, and there were two female people had arrived, you know, and there was a girl to my right who was quite European looking, I guess, in a very simple brown dress again, nothing too ethereal. And then, but the girl to my left was more she was wearing like a well, she was like Brazilian or Native American or Asian Indian appearance, and then she had more like a traditional dress on. She looked amazing, and they both had their hands just kind of hovering over my body, and the energy that was coming from their hands was just so beautiful. It was just like unconditional love, pure unconditional love that's coming from their hands. Um, so I just felt like they were healing my body, healing me from the trauma of what I'd just been through, but
Mm.
I felt it was deeper than that. I felt that they were taking off the layers that I carried throughout my life, like that we all do, you know, the baggage as we call it, you know, and they were getting down to the pure essence of my soul and healing my soul. So
Wow.
that was wonderful. Yeah.
It must have been. Because actually, we are just, we forget that we're this physical body is not who we are. And I think it's when you first awaken to some kind of spirituality, if you're lucky, it gives you that kind of understanding. But it's still
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
quite hard to carry that that realization in everyday life because you get knocked out of it, by events, don't you? But
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing to remember once you've understood that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
you're not
absolutely. Totally.
you're
Yeah.
actually not this physical vessel.
Yeah. This is absolutely it. I mean,
Just
it's
a
just
manifestation.
one of the greatest lessons that we can learn,
Yeah,
really, you know, through spirituality
yeah, yeah.
is that
You're
complete
like
point.
an essence. You're a distilled essence of part of your soul
Yeah,
walking around.
most certainly. Yeah, you
Okay.
know, and
Yeah,
and that's what I realized for the first time in the whole of my life as I was there at this point,
yeah,
and it was the most complete I'd ever felt and the happiest I'd ever felt, and it was just a sensation of like, wow, I'm okay, you know, and that's what I was being told. I was being given so much unconditional love, and you know, and I was being sort of said, David, you know, it's not your fault, all these different issues that have happened in your life. You know, you this is you, and this is your authentic, true self shining for the first time. You know,
yeah.
yeah. And it's because it's interesting actually, because I remember starting to at that point I remember thinking about my family because I knew how upset they'd been, and I figured, well, if I'm dead now, then they're going to be really distraught. And I thought I better try and have a look and see how they're doing. So I leaned over the edge of this huge rock that I was
You're
lying on
thinking that
now.
you might be able to see them somewhere down in the hospital below you.
Yeah, that's what I figured I would be able to see them. Yeah, and it's interesting because I looked over and I could not, I didn't actually see them, but what I did see was just the most incredible sight. It was just, well, I looked down and I could see like this a vast waterfall of stars. It was just like a huge arc of stars. It was the size of Niagara, you know, and it was, but instead of millions of tons of water cascading over the edge, it was like millions of beautiful sparkling stars that were just slowly cascading over. And I thought, wow, this is remarkable. I thought, I'm not in a small darkened space at all. I'm actually in the universe itself. And I felt so connected with that universe at that point. It was just brilliant, you
I've
know.
got goosebumps again.
Brilliant, bless you.
I was going
Uh,
to ask you, I mean, I don't know whether it occurred to you that those stars might actually have been souls.
I'm not so sure. I don't know. I mean, I didn't actually sense it as being that. That's an interesting one. I haven't really.
Yeah.
No one said that to me before. I mean, all I felt was, as I say, a connection with the fact that I was actually in the universe, you know, and because some of the images that I saw were things like that I'd never seen before in my life. Because as I looked down, I remember I was looking from. It felt like I was looking from one galaxy into another. The deeper I looked, my eyes adjusted, and I started to see colors. I started to see nebulas, and there were colors and nebulas that I'd never seen before in my life. For me, space was just, I hardly took much attention to it. It was just, it was just a black sky with sparkling white stars. But here were all these colors. And interestingly, I started to paint all those various things later on. And there was some of the telescopes like Hubble have taken images since from our galaxy that haven't been seen before, and they are almost identical to what I saw and what I painted. So there was incredible confirmation, affirmation when I saw those. I thought, wow, there you go, that's what I saw. So the sense of me did actually feel that what I was looking at was the actual reality of our universe, which is actually there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, so you're lying there and you're looking at this Niagara fall of stars, and then something else even more remarkable happened.
Yeah, exactly. I remember pulling myself back over, and I remember thinking to myself, rather than my old guilt-ridden self going, "Oh my God, my family, I can't see them." I remember saying to myself, "Okay, well, I can't see them, but I'm sure I'm going to be seeing them at some point soon. And if I don't, they're going to be enjoying all this incredible beauty when they come over and when they pass."
Yeah.
So I was totally at ease with it all. And then it was pretty much at that point that I felt something change rather than what I saw change. And it was just, I felt that energy of love that was coming through my body. Suddenly had stepped up a gear. It's like every single molecule of my body was vibrating with this energy of love. And I thought, what's going on? So I looked up, and just beyond the first being of light that I'd seen was this huge tunnel of white light that was closing in on me. And this tunnel of white light was surrounded by dramatic flames that were just like very awe-inspiring, that normally would be quite scary, but in this realm I had no sense of fear. And as it closed in on me, I just felt this energy intensity just turn up, and I just looked at this light, and there was a lot of telepathy coming through. And what I was being told was this was the source of all creation that I was staring at. This was God, not the image of God that I figured would in most religious forms are some kind of human form. It was just, no, this was it. This was like this huge tunnel of light, and it was, that was incredibly awe-inspiring, and the most profound moment of the experience, because that's the thing that stayed with me and changed my life, basically.
I can't imagine what that must have felt like. It must have been
Yeah.
completely awe-inspiring. I mean, just to know that, because it's when you receive something telepathically, it. You don't have to explain it. You just get that sort of download, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Download. Yeah.
I've never seen it myself. I've had quite a few kind of spiritual, psychic experiences, which I won't go into now because it's not about me, it's about you. But that is just, I think few people must have had that experience. It seems quite unique.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've since realized, obviously, that many people have had near-death experiences. The common thread that comes in is the tunnel of white light that they talk about. And some people say that they enter into it and stuff. For me, that wasn't the case. I wasn't, I didn't enter into that light because I figured that, I didn't make a choice to come back. I was so happy there. I could have carried on, but the choice was given to send me back into my body at that stage. And I look at back now, and I figured that I'd learned all I needed to learn. Basically, I'd got all the information that I needed to gain from that experience and bring back with me. Yeah.
So everything that you needed in order to transform your life had occurred in those few moments.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's it. And also to be able to record and bring back with me and try to convey through what I now am is an artist and a musician, and so it's all comes through that, and then of course the book, which is this is crazy because I'm dyslexic, so who would have thought? I never even read books. I couldn't read books before. It's bonkers, but there you go.
It's crazy, isn't it? And so then you arrive back in your body to a world of pain, presumably.
Yeah.
And then what did you do next in that situation with a left arm you couldn't use? and on a hospital bed and full of drips and God knows what.
Exactly. Yeah. I got all sorts of wires and tubes coming out of me, and I couldn't
Yeah.
move, and I was in a pretty bad way. I mean, I remember waking up because when I come back into my body, they were wheeling me straight into theatre. So I was under for about 8.5 hours, and when I came through, first of all I was in this. They gave me my own room in the hospital because of the severity of the accident, but which was great. So I got plenty of peace in there. But I remember I woke at about 2 a.m. and it was just me and this bleeping machine next to me, and part of me was obviously reeling from the shock of the accident and trying to think about what had just happened. But the majority of my thoughts were going back to this whole experience and wow, what happened there, and why did that happen, and why did they send me back? And the biggest thing was, what's my quest? What am I supposed to be doing with this knowledge, and how am I going to tell people about this? Because I knew nothing about near-death experiences, and I was completely non-spiritual, so it didn't come into my world, and so I knew nothing. So I was scared I was going to forget it all. I was worried. I thought, hey, I might forget this, and it's really important that I don't. So I started sketching. My sister came in to see me. I remember the first night. She said, "Is there anything I can get you?" And I said, "Yeah, can you get me a small A5 sketch pad and a pencil?" She was going, "Okay," So, and the sketches I did were just so faint because I could hardly, the nurses had to
That's
prop me
okay.
up in bed to do them. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
still got them, and so there's no point in me even showing you because they're so you wouldn't even see what was going on. But for me, that was enough to
Yeah.
think, right, I've got it all mapped out. So because I decided there and then I was going to paint what I'd seen, and I thought I'm going to do a huge canvas. It's got to be like the big sort of Renaissance style paintings you see, those big
Yeah.
biblical scenes. And so I was already feeling the sense of ambition inside me to pull that off. And
And this is really interesting because you weren't a painter or whatever beforehand at all, were you? You didn't express yourself visually, or did you? Before the accident. Oh, you're frozen. Hello. I've lost you. Ah. Um. Hmm. Lost the connection. Hold on, David. I'm just going to message you.
uh,
Sorry, I just paused the recording. I don't know what happened there. You just stood staring at me like, oh, what's she going to
yeah,
say?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, you froze for a second, so I kind
Yeah,
of thought
yeah, so
maybe
did
you.
you. No, I thought it was you. So,
Oh right, okay. We must have just lost signal. So
yeah, anyway,
so
no.
yeah, so
So yeah, I was just asking you whether you had expressed any kind of artistic skills before this occasion.
right, okay. Well, what I will say is, when I was younger, when I was very young, that I enjoyed drawing. I really did. And but I was never encouraged to take it any further because I got learning difficulties at school, that they could see that I was not going to get any academic qualifications to go into art school or anything, and they were just. At my school, they were just trying to get me onto the production line at the local factory, which I didn't want to do that. But there you go. So I wasn't encouraged. So I didn't really have any training to become an artist, and so that had gone. A lot of kids enjoy drawing, so I was that kind of at that stage. But um, music wise, I could play. I taught myself guitar, and I could thrash out three chords. And like a lot of us when we're younger, and you join your local band and stuff, but nothing too serious again. So I got the basic things that were in there that needed to come out, but they were locked away deep inside, and there was, there was no real sort of what I now realize is all the stuff that I do in my paintings and my music. It's all channeled. It's all coming from a different source. It's all coming right through, and when I did that very first painting, the very first one that I did, I mean, I was apprehensive about starting it because I didn't want to mess it up. I wanted to get this just right. And I got this huge canvas leaning against the wall, staring at me. But when I started painting it, the ideas that went onto this canvas were just looking great to me, and I thought, wow, I still felt like I was connected to the other sphere, you know, like this energy was still being given to me for quite some time after the actual recovery period, you know, and so I knew they were helping me. And there was that it's like I was being given a crash course in how to paint. Being told how to put colors onto skin to make skin tones come alive and all different things like that, which I knew nothing about, you know, I got none of that kind of knowledge. In fact, you know, I still do. You know, I'll be doing a painting or working on a piece of music, and if an idea comes through, and I think, wow, that's not just me doing this. You know, I'm just holding the brush, and I'll thank them. I say, thank you so much. You know, that's brilliant. You know, so yeah, but
How,
my
oh,
go on. Sorry,
sorry. I was
no,
just,
carry on, please.
how long was your recovery period then from the this?
Oh, well, it went on for months, really. I was kind of once I was actually discharged from hospital, I was going back in 3 times a week, you know, to have my dressings changed and stuff. But it went remarkably quicker, according to the surgeons and the consultants, and they figured it would do. And I know that that's because I started having spiritual healing, and I was getting
Yeah.
spiritual healing, and I was being helped to recover, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my consultants that, and of course that didn't, you know,
Now I can imagine how they
they were
reacted.
going, yes, okay, David, you know, they kind of shut me down on that one, you know. But that's the truth, you know, because I knew there was a spiritualist church near, because I was recovering at my sister's house out in Cambridgeshire, and I knew there was a spiritualist church nearby, and I wanted to try and find them again, so that, because I thought these people are gonna get what's just happened to me, and I'll be able to talk about it and express and find out more about it. And they did. They
Yeah.
said, "Oh, you've had a near death experience," you know. I thought, "Oh, great, okay." And they said, "You look, you know, in a pretty bad way." My arm was like sort of like covered in all this huge bits of plastic holding it together, you know, and because the consultant saved my arm. It's amazing, you know. So
Yeah.
the first thing I said when he took me in, I said, "Look, will you save my arm, please?" And he said, and he did. So anyhow, I digress. But when I went in there, they said, "You look like you could do with some healing. We do spiritual healing if you're interested." I said, "Yeah, great. When can I start?" So I started going to spiritual healing, and that was amazing. You know, some of the healers there have told me since, you know, that they could see that in the early sessions, I was levitating. You
Wow.
know, yeah, while I was laid
Oh my God.
on this bench. I know, and you know, that wasn't. I thought I was at the time, but I never said anything. You know, I didn't say,
Yeah.
"Wow, I was levitating." You know, because you don't. You know, you want to
No,
large
you
yourself
don't.
up or whatever.
As a rational
And
person, you tend not to think of those things. Think, oh, it's just my imagination, don't you?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
but that came out only recently. You know, one of the senior sort of healers there, his
that is
journal release. He
incredible.
said,
But
"Yeah,
it's not the first time you had dealings with that spiritualist church, is it? If I remember right.
no, that's right." That's why. But it was just by chance then.
Yeah.
I'd been going up to visit my sister a few months prior to the accident or whatever, you know, and when I was on the train, I remember I was feeling quite hungover at the time. I'd been out with my friends the night before, but there was an elderly couple sat opposite me, and they were trying to get a conversation going with me. And you know, when you're like that, you think, no, I can't do this right now. But they were a lovely couple, and I remember she started saying to me, "Oh, we're off to see a medium tonight, and she's very good." And I said, "Oh, okay, you know." And then she said, "Yeah." She said, "Nobody knows her. She's not a well-known medium, but she really gets it." So I remember she handed me this little flyer, and I just folded it up and put it in my pocket. And when I got to my sister's house, there was a lot of chaos going on. I remember the kids were playing up and stuff, and I thought, I'm going to go and have a drink at the local pub, you know, and decided to. And I got there and I got this flyer out, and I thought, I'm going to go to this mediumship and give it a try. I was just curious, you know.
Yeah.
And I got there and it was packed. There was just like loads of people piling into this small spiritualist church, and I got myself a seat. And she was great. She was called Julia Knight, and she was like picking out people and giving so much. You know, it was great because it was a lot of people had just lost their loved ones who went there looking for connection, and they got that connection, and it was great. I wasn't looking for anything at that stage, you know, at all. You know, I just was fascinated. But she suddenly turned around and she said, "Gentleman in the blue sweater over there," which was me. She said, "Your life is about to change." And I went, "Oh, okay." And I thought, this is totally different tact from the way she's going into others, you know.
Yeah.
She didn't say, "Oh, I've got your grandfather here," or whatever. And I said, in what way is it going to change? And she started pacing around. She was like going, yes, yes, yes. She was communicating with them and talking
Wow.
to them. And then she said, they're not telling me. They're just saying, be ready for it. It's going to be big. But you will be protected, but be ready for it. And I went, okay. And I figured at that stage, wow, am I going to get a lottery winning? Am I going to get the girl I was after? And all those kind of things,
Oh my God.
all those kind of ego-led things. But of course, I realized that what she was talking about, I was about to have this accident and a near-death experience. So that's why I was so keen to track down this church and track her down.
I bet. I bet. And you met her again?
Yeah, I met her again, and eventually, and she was the one. She said she was the one who gave me the reading, saying about seeing me with the cats, because we got chatting. Excuse me. She was the one who gave me the reading about the cats and stuff, and so we got chatting, and she said, I'd like to give you a free reading, and if you'd like. I said, yeah, that'd be great. So we did do, and that was really beautiful. So that's how I came across that church again. That's how I went there. Yeah.
And so you were going for regular spiritual healing, and that was something which accelerated your physical healing.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. And while I was there, I was being some of the healers clairvoyant, and a few of them, and they would give me very short messages afterwards, and they'd just be things like saying, "Oh, I saw a blue light coming through your heart chakra or whatever." But then they started to say things. A few different ones were saying, "Why am I seeing a violin placed across your chest?" And "Why am I hearing Wagner and Beethoven?" And
Wow.
then one of them said, "They're telling me that you're going to write a piece of music about your experience." I went, "Okay." So I went back home and I got this old cheap synthesizer in the loft because I couldn't play guitar anymore because of my arm, and I just got this out, and I just got a cassette recorder, and I just started playing around different ideas, thinking I was going to write a song because I knew nothing more than songs, and that wasn't happening. Then suddenly this beautiful chord progression started to come through. When I say beautiful, that's because it wasn't coming from me.
No,
Again, it was coming from
I
a higher
understand.
source.
Yeah, you heard it
And
first and just had to translate it, kind of. Is that how
yeah,
it?
exactly. So, and I thought, this is good, and I knew that this was starting to develop into something more than a song. And I'd become friends with a cello player in the local orchestra, and we met for coffee one day, and she was quite spiritual as well. She said, "What are you up to?" And I told her, said, "I'm writing a new piece about my NDE." She said, "Oh, maybe we could perform it in our orchestra." And I thought, I'm going to hold you to that, So I thought that gave me
Yeah.
encouragement to complete the whole thing. And
Wow.
so I did do, and I took it to them, to the orchestra. And when I say I took it to them, obviously they needed music score. I can't read or write music even now, but my brother gave me some software. He said that when you're playing on your keyboard, it will transpose it into musical notation. So that's what I did. Printed it off,
Okay.
went along, and they said, "Yeah, we'll do it. We'll perform it." And they did, and it was a huge success. It was a sellout concert, because again, I was being helped. I was being helped now with the promotion of it. I was like, the orchestra said, "Oh, would you mind saying a few words to the local press because you've written a piece of music that we're premiering?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And the local press said, "Hey, hang on, you're the guy who went under the train, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, this is going on the front page," And so after that, the phone started ringing, and the BBC turned up,
Wow.
and next thing we knew, it had sold out. And so yeah,
So many
which was great.
yeah. Synchronicities all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, synchronicity is all over the place, and
And,
so
and you
it
had
was
other
just
help as well, didn't you? Because your brother was able to tell you how to write the score for certain instruments and how to explain the orchestra layout and all of that kind of thing, too.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He helped me tremendously. Yeah. Because he's trained in that area. He was the one who did well at school and was academic. And it didn't have any learning difficulties. So he was a brilliant big brother to me from that point of view. Yeah.
Mm.
Because I knew nothing. I mean, I walked into the first rehearsal, and I
Must have
thought,
been
oh, it was terrifying because classical musicians are lovely people. They were a lovely orchestra, but they're also, it was quite intimidating because they're all very highly trained,
terrifying.
highly educated people in their craft. And there's me coming from, months previous from a construction site, with no abilities whatsoever, and saying, "Here, I've written a symphony."
Yeah.
But You know what? I remember, I didn't, I got no idea whether it was going to work or not. No idea. But when the conductor's baton came down, I remember those opening chords came in, and those first ones that I'd written on this little cheap synthesizer, and it sounded just like I wanted it to sound. It was just remarkable. I was just so
I bet all the hairs on
moved.
the back of your neck stood up, did they?
Absolutely, because I'd recommend it to anyone. If you can write a piece of music and get an orchestra to perform it, it's brilliant. It's like a huge 3-dimensional sound, that just,
Yeah.
because it was being rehearsed in the church as well, and the acoustics were
Wow.
just perfect, and it was just like wow, it just literally took off. Yeah.
It wasn't like
So
you
yeah, so the
suddenly.
performance.
Sorry, I butted in
No,
again.
you go on. It wasn't like what I say.
I was just going to say, it wasn't as if you just turned up with this 50-page score just like that, because it had been assessed and vetted and read and all that sort of thing by the conductor and by your cellist friend, hadn't it? And they said this is really good, and
Oh
you
yeah.
were surprised and all of that. Maybe you could just talk a tiny bit about that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the way it works with orchestras. I mean, to me, it's still, I can't believe it that they, as musicians, like the conductor, for example, can look at a whole score, and he can look at all the different instruments, and he can hear how it's going to sound just by reading that score and reading all the different parts.
Such a skill.
And he was going, "Oh, this is good," and he was turning around, and he was going, I like the way you've got a C sharp minor over an E flat, and you would never normally do that. And I'm going, what is he talking about? But of course I didn't want to give the game away, and I was going, oh great, thanks, um, and he actually said to me, I said, well, you must have written, quite a few pieces yourself, so you know how it goes. And he said, no. He says, there's no way I would attempt to write a symphony for an orchestra. He said, it's a huge task that you've taken on here. He said, it's not to be taken lightly, So that in itself was like something that I would not have realized it was such a tough
Oh, you're breaking up a bit.
thing to do. But yeah, I'm breaking up, am I?
Yeah, you were
Can
just
you hear
then.
me? Okay?
Yeah, you're all right. It's just
Yeah.
a little bit of lag
Yeah.
in your signal. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Um, so basically, yeah. So the conductor, as I say, I'll go back to that, and he said to me that taking on the task of writing a symphony is a huge one, and so it was really commendable that I managed to pull it together, whether I was classically trained or not. So that was great. But the funny thing is, there was no sense of ego in all this. There was no sense of, hey, well done, David. You've done a great job. But I mean, for example, when we sold out the concert, I was like thinking, great, more and more people are going to be able to hear about the journey and hear about the experience, rather than thinking,
Yeah.
it's all going to be about me, because it wasn't. I mean, there was a standing ovation at the end, and it was just remarkable. I didn't even notice that. We were given front row seats, me and my family, and my mum was in tears at the end. She said that was just so beautiful,
Oh,
and we were hugging each other, and it was my sister who said, David, look behind you, and I looked, and there all these people were stood, and I had to go and collect a bottle of wine off the conductor, or a young girl stepped forward and gave it to me, and I didn't even want to do that. I was kind of like, no, and they're going, come on, like, this is this is your moment. And so I didn't even see it like that, and I still don't. I still, everything that's happening now, or the way everything that's, since the book's come out, I've been doing interviews, talking to people all over the world, which I never anticipated, and it's just great, because I never think of myself as like, wow, I've done this one now. I've just reached that many people. I just think, great, the story's getting out there. The ripple of what I'm supposed to be doing is just slowly spreading outwards. And that's how I see it, because
it's
that's.
remarkable, actually, isn't it? It's such a remarkable story, because I've got, I don't, you can't see. Total goosebumps.
Bless you. That's great.
Oh no, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because it's just such an inspiration to
Thank you.
to be spreading that knowledge and information to people who have, like you were, you having no idea of
Yeah.
this other side of what it means to be, this whole invisible realm, and
Yeah.
actually bringing
Exactly.
it into fruition through sound and vision, and actually talking about your paintings, because you've done it's more than 40 paintings now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm still continuing with more now. So yeah, so
And
I
is it
just
all on
continue
the
to
same
keep
topic,
painting.
or are you selling your
Not
paintings?
all of them, no, no. I mean, you know, I do. There are other things. I get commissions to do other things. You know, I did an interesting. I was approached by the then I forget what they're called now. The Association of Reflexologists
Oh,
recently to do some stuff for them, and I really enjoyed doing that. So I had to paint I decided to do like a painting of like an iridescent body, and then I had to paint all the various organs inside the body to show how reflexology affects all those different parts and
mm,
stuff. And that I really enjoyed that. So,
yeah,
but it was still just as spiritual as doing that as it was
still channeling.
painting what I saw in my
Yeah.
NDE. But yeah, but then I come back away from that as soon as I've done a project like that. I'm coming back like at the moment I've been doing quite a bit of, which is based on my NDA. I've got some new ones that I'm working on, you know, because I mean, for me, I just want to try and give people as much of a candid view of the whole experience, you know, in each dimension, whether it's either through my music or my art or through the book. You know, I mean, I get people now who get in touch with me who said, "Oh, I read Shine On, and I was listening to your symphony at the same time, and it gave me a different dimension of what happened to you in your experience." So it's great. You know, I realize that is basically what my quest is. As I said to you earlier,
Yes.
all of us. I've seen other people interviewed of NDEs, and they all come back saying, "Right, what's my mission? Am I going to be a healer? Am I going to heal other people?" But we've all got the same common denominator, and we're all saying we want to do, we want to help. We know we want to do something
Yeah.
that's because we've been given a remarkable window into
Yeah.
what's waiting for us all next, and not only that, how we can use it in our everyday lives. You know.
Absolutely. So you're no longer seeking a mission found you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the mission found me, and that's how I sort of tend to go through my life. You know, it's you know, I don't plan heavily. You know, it's like whatever I'm working on, I
Mm.
just allow that, talking about that ripple, just to keep that ripple moving. You know, and I don't say, right, let's have a power meeting now, you know, and let's find out what we should do next, you know, who we should
Yeah.
hit next and stuff. You know, it's not
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not like that. It's a very authentic sort of natural progression.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I mean, it's so inspiring. The complete transition from disconnection to connection is just like, wow, you know.
Well, yeah, but I think it's within us all. I mean,
Mm.
the whole thing again that I try to put across in my interviews as well is that it's, you don't have to go under a train or have a near-death experience to find this voice within yourself, this authentic voice, you know, and to, you know, to change, to turn your life around. You know, I mean, we all had a window of that when the pandemic first happened, when
Oh,
we all went into the first lockdown 2 years ago.
you're breaking up a
And
bit.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, it's just, let me just check my signal. I'm all right.
It
It's
must be a bad
just every
signal,
now and
isn't it?
again, it's sort of stuttering a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you find it
Okay.
better. Yeah. So yeah, when
Okay.
we went into the pandemic, you were saying.
Yeah, when we went into the pandemic, which was like pretty much 2 years ago now, you know, and I remember thinking at the time that it was remarkable how I felt that people were almost going through a sort of global thing, that almost like having an NDE, that they got off the rat race, they got off the 9 to 5, getting up in the morning, getting on the train or whatever, you know, people started appreciating nature for the first time. People started appreciating their families, teaching their kids at home, baking bread and all those different things they'd never done before, and being creative as well. So it's within us all, you know, to stop and find that inner voice, and find that. I'm not saying that we all become artists or musicians, but there could be other hidden talents that we didn't
There
realize
are
because
other
we
expressions,
never tapped in. Yeah,
yeah, totally. I think it was great. I mean, there's so much about the pandemic which was traumatic. We've all been through a collective dark night of the soul, and it's not over yet. But like you say, I think it was the perfect opportunity to start questioning the way things have always been. Just because they've always been that way doesn't mean they always have to be.
yeah,
And that, you know, people were actually given the chance to think, wait a minute, I don't enjoy working like, you know, the way I was working before. I actually prefer working at home, being able to go to walk in the woods at lunchtime, or, you know, spending more time with my kids or my animals, or all of that kind of stuff. And I think it made
exactly.
a lot of
Yeah,
people question, which was amazing. actually. It's really amazing that
Mm.
people were actually by force given that chance to really stop and take a good long look at
Oh, totally.
life
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I saw all the positives that came out of that period, you know, when it was happening.
Yeah, yeah,
I felt like when it first happened, it felt like the earth had just kind of like been knocked off kilter. It was almost like, woo, you
yeah,
know, there was
yeah,
like this huge shift.
yeah,
And of course, you know, it was tragic that, you know, people would catch this awful thing, and people would lose their lives and lose their loved ones, and that was
mm,
awful. That was terrible. So I'm not downplaying that side of it all, but at the same time, it was great to see this kind of cosmic shift, you know, as well. That because I just felt that we'd reached tipping point by then, you know,
yes,
with the
I
climate
agree.
change and everything, and it was almost like we needed like the rug to be shaken, you know.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. That was oh, I got some kind of, oh, that's all right. I got a notification. It's fine. Yeah, it was a total tipping point, I think, for humanity and the world, and I pray we don't go back to that. I don't think it's possible. Actually, I think everything's changed so much that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we can't go back to business as usual.
Oh no, 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 exactly. You know, we shouldn't be either. I mean, it used to drive me not mad, but I used to feel why are people saying all the time, "We just want to get back to normal." You know, I was just thinking there is no going back to normal. But you need to stop and realize that you've just been given a great lesson here, and absorb it, and just think that let's try and move into a new normal now. You know,
Yeah, total opportunity out of a crisis, really, wasn't it?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, do you still suffer with PTSD from the accident, or have you managed
It
to deal with
Yeah, it's still there. It's nothing like it was, you know. I mean, that I had a lot of therapy to help with that. You know, you don't come back from a near-death experience superhuman. You know, you're still flesh and bones and all that stuff, and anxiety issues, but they are a lot easier to deal with than what they used to be. You know, because I'm more grounded, and that I'm facing up to them. You know,
it?
I didn't do before. I just buried everything before, anything that went wrong, any adversity in my life. I would just try and skim the surface, you know, and go to the nearest bar and find my friends and have a drink, you know. Whereas I don't do that now. I will, if there's any fear or anxieties, I address them, and work through them. And I learned from my lessons. I learned that from, you know, when I was in that sphere, in that moment in the NDE, that time didn't exist. You know, I wasn't concerned about the past anymore, and I wasn't concerned about the future. So I try and apply that to my day-to-day living. You know, that, you know, rather than, it's very easy to trigger fear by worrying about the future, and we create stories in our minds, and those stories are often worse than the scenario that's about to happen, and there's no point in allowing ourselves to go there. So
Yeah,
but yeah, you know, but I do, you know, I have dreams and stuff like that that still that come back to me, that haunt me, you know, which are very, you know, the physical mind and body should not go through something as awful as that's being pulled under a train, you know.
oh, yes. I mean, deeply shocking,
Yeah,
shocking. But I
exactly.
suppose, in one sense, it wiped your slate clean. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
now you
yeah.
can look at your life through a different lens,
That's it. Yeah,
a
yeah.
little filter. The one that you were operating through before is no longer in existence.
That's it. Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's all open. It's marvelous. Absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Um, so let me just check my notes. Oh yeah, I was going to ask you, have you connected with any other NDE experiences at all?
Well, yes, I have, because I've been invited to, over the past few years, to take part in NDE summits
Oh,
in America. You know, so but they've been, because of pandemic, they've been online, so they've been
yeah.
like huge Zoom conferences. So I've been sort of connecting with quite a lot, mainly out in the US, but some in Europe as well. And so that's been great, you know, because it's kind of like it's like a club, you know, and we all get chatting when we stop recording, and we're all, and it's like having a green room, you know, we all get talking about our experiences, and we go, yeah, did you feel like that? You know, we were in the hospital, you know, just funny little things. Like I remember that I was highly charged with static electricity throughout my whole time in hospital, like, you know, no one could touch the bed because it would just go, you know, people would jump, and I was going, and they were going, yeah, I was like that as well, you know. And there's
Wow.
lots of funny little things, little quirks that you have when you come back from an NDE that change you. And so we were sharing notes on that, which is great because it's almost like a feeling of affirmation, you know. It's just really good. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Life affirming, actually.
Yeah, life affirming, and that's it. And you realize that it spurs you to keep going as well, and it spurs them to keep going, you know, because you realize that when we come to the end of those conferences, it's just you know, I'll speak for an hour or what have you, and then after I've finished, I'll watch the next person who's come on I've never heard of before. I think, wow, that's brilliant, that's so profound where you were coming from, and that's great. So yeah, we're all learning, and then we're all friends now. We all connect through
That's so
social media, and we all
yeah.
so it's like we've all got each other, so it's really good.
Nice. And Dr. Moody, who wrote the introduction for your book,
Yeah,
he's a really interesting guy. And
yeah.
I read years ago when someone I was very close to was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I read a lot of Michael Newton's books. Have you come across him?
No, I haven't. No.
Destiny of Souls and Journey of Souls. I think those two. He's passed away himself now. But
Yeah.
what was interesting, the reason I was asking you about the stars, the Niagara Fall of stars possibly being souls, was because he was describing. He found in regression hypnosis that people would describe the process of dying and the sort of filtration system that goes on according to your spiritual development, and how this is kind of strata, and they could see all these lights. People were identified as lights and not as physical. You know, you didn't necessarily see a physical being anymore. You saw a light that someone could choose
Mm.
to manifest themselves as they were if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was just lights.
Yeah,
And then
sure.
all the different lights traveling through the different grades of this huge spiral somebody was describing, and then
Yeah,
return home to their soul families. And you know,
that makes an awful lot of sense. That's great. Yeah,
yeah, isn't it though?
yeah,
I
that's
was always
lovely. Yeah,
fascinated. It gave me a lot of comfort because, you know, obviously I was really attached to this person, and he passed away in 2018. But these books just gave me the strength to endure the grief, really, I think.
mm.
So it's amazing.
That's great, isn't it? It's wonderful to have that. You know, because grieving is like really important. You know, I lost both my parents over the past 2 years, and you know, as much as it was a comfort for me knowing that, you know, their journey is not over, that they're
Yeah.
about to go and enjoy all the wonders of
Yes.
await them, but I still grieve them, you know,
Of
physically.
course. Yeah.
But it's great to have all this. We're very lucky to be able to tap into all this knowledge that, like you
What
say,
a
being able
gift.
to read books like that
Yeah.
and find out more. And I think we should do. I mean, it's just it's the one thing that astounds me that we don't talk about death at all. I'm not saying we should be chatting about it all the time, but we plan everything else in life. We plan birth, marriage, even taking our driving test or whatever. You know, we plan really heavily for all those things. We don't plan for death, and it's going to come to us all. You know, and we may as well just at least look into it and just do some kind of thought processing as to
Yeah.
what might happen next, rather than saying, "Oh no, I don't want to talk about that." You know,
I
that's
don't.
a dark issue. You know,
Well, I think it's
because
because a lot of people just see it as the end. I think if you think of this life as
yeah,
being all there is,
yeah.
and oblivion is what comes next, then that would be scary. I don't see it like that.
Well, I certainly don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
either because you know the thing is the soul is such a strong entity that there's no way. Yeah, yes, the body stops and then decays and stuff, but the soul continues on. It's just so powerful. I mean, you know, that's the whole thing about that whole experience when I was there was it was the pure essence of my soul that I was there.
yes,
That I was feeling and sensing. You know, so yeah, it carries on. Most
marvelous. I think
certainly.
that's a really good place to probably stop and wrap up. But that's
Great.
a wonderful thought to leave everybody with. So I'm just going to show the book again in case
Thank
anyone
you.
at the beginning. Everybody get this book. It's wonderful. Um, and where can people find your paintings and your music?
Yeah, well, I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and YouTube and stuff. But I guess the best thing to do is to go to my website first, which is called shineonthestory.com, and then you'll find all the links to, and you can listen, you can stream that very first symphony that I wrote, which is called The Divine Light. You can hear that for free on there, and you can look at some of my paintings are on there as well, and then you can find links if you want to follow me to find out what's happening next, what I'm doing. You know, I like to sort of diary what's happening in my life and stuff. So yeah, just you can find the links to Instagram and Facebook or whatever on there.
Fantastic. Have you got any concerts coming up?
No, because with the whole lockdown scenario, orchestras haven't really kind of got themselves back into sort of really getting together
That's
and
true.
groupings. So,
Yeah.
but I'm working on some new music there. So the whole what I'm working on now, rather than a concert, is I want to release an album of my music this year. So, and I'll be recording sort of various people from the orchestra individually, you know, in the studio. So rather than the whole orchestra together, I'll be
Right.
getting them all in bit one by one, you know.
That's great.
So yeah, so that's
Yeah.
hopefully this year.
Exciting stuff.
So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, ever so nice to talk to you. I'm really
And you
delighted
too.
we managed to connect. And it's just such an inspiration. And I hope more people will get the message that this is not all there is, you know,
Yeah.
from your stories and my own experiences, which I was going to invite you to one of my gong baths if you want to come since you're in London. So, you know, feel free. You've frozen again. Have you frozen? No, you haven't frozen.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm actually in Cambridge. I'm in Cambridge at the moment,
Oh, are you?
but yeah,
Of
but
course, you're living in a
yeah,
beautiful mill. I forgot that for a minute.
yeah. Don't worry about it. But that's
Yeah.
fine. But I could, yeah. But that'd be lovely. I'd love to come down some
Yeah.
point. Yeah,
Well,
that sounds
anytime you're
great.
coming to London, let me know, and
I will do. Yeah,
I'll invite
yeah,
you along.
yeah. Whereabouts are you? What
I'm
part
in
of
South London,
in
so
South? Right. Okay.
yeah.
Oh, that's okay. My brother's South London, so I could maybe
Okay,
next time I'm
that
down
could
seeing
work.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. David, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's
Really
great
lovely
to meet you.
talking
Lovely
to you.
chatting. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed it. Yeah.
take care. I look
Take
forward
care.
to news, reviews, you know, events, concerts, and all that kind of stuff. So keep me
Yeah.
posted. Nice one.
Thank you. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And
Take care
you
now.
take care. Bye.
Bye.
See you.